We've got India. India at home over 5 tests this summer, starting in from time of recording 2 days' time at Headingley in Leeds. And like I said, this is the start, the first of two of the big tests for this England setup, what we've been building for. And we have our first team announced for it. And there was a bit of talk and discussion about whether that number three role was going to be Bethell's or Pope's. And it looks like it's going to be Pope's. In fact, it is going to be Pope's because that's what the team has been announced. So we have got Crawley and Duckett opening. We've got Ollie Pope at 3, got Joe Root at 4, Harry Brook at 5, Ben Stokes 6, Jamie Smith 7. And then our bowlers are Chris Wokes at 8, Brydon Cast 9, Josh Tongue 10, and Shoaib Bashir at 11. So, Paddy, to Bethell or not to Bethell? It seems like we've gone to not. What are your thoughts on the team?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, I think that was the only real sort of talking points were which of those bowlers were going to kind of get the nod. It's funny how I know you asked me about Bethel and I've gone straight to the bowlers, but I was just thinking of the thinking of the bowlers. I'm going to talk about Bethel, the Bethel and Pope debate. But just on the bowlers, I think it's funny how that bowling attack with Chris Wokes in, it looks very experienced. If you take him out, there's just not a lot of Test cricket there. So it kind of feels like we've got Wokes in, and then we've kind of built the rest of that batting lineup, the bowling lineup around his experience. But I think the fact that he has such a good record at home in general, I think it means that they're probably going to try and play him in the majority of the games. I think he'll play in at least 3. I don't think he'll play in any more of that. I can see him playing it in 3 over the course of the summer, because obviously we do still have Sam Cook, Jamie Overton, and Gus Atkinson in the squad, like the big squad. I think.
And Jofra penciled for second
Yeah,
test onwards as
and
well.
and Joffre obviously lined up to potentially. So yeah, got plenty of options there. But I mean, the lineup we've got there. There's plenty of pace, there's plenty of height. I mean, Bryden Carter's huge. I've sat when he's been fielding on the boundary, and even from like 20 feet away, you can just tell he's massive. So he'll be enjoying his obviously his next kind of chance to get in around that team. But to go back to your question, what you did ask about half an hour ago, yeah, I think it wasn't really much of a surprise, to be honest. I think I would have quite liked to have seen Bethel at 3. I just think he's got more. I'd say he's got a bit more about him as a number 3, but I think we've kind of gone with this being the first test. We've probably gone. Let's kind of let's stick with what we know, and we know it's going to be a tough test. Maybe kind of see how the land lies after the first test, and then going into the second test, which I think is Edgbaston off the top of my head. To kind of see what the situation is there. But I think with this first game, they're probably thinking we don't want to kind of mess things around too much. I think we just kind of got to basically see how India approach this series, because in recent years they haven't had the greatest record in England. I know they got the 2-2 draw last time out. Obviously, that was that odd series when the last game got cancelled, didn't it? Because it was a
Yeah,
COVID.
COVID.
There was
Yeah,
a
and then
COVID outbreak, and then
yeah,
the final match of that series got played like
in the
a
Bazball
year and a
era.
bit later.
Yeah, yeah.
um, so yeah, obviously, but that would be a much sort of changed Indian side, and I mean they'll be relishing the prospect to be able to come and beat England in their own backyard, because obviously a lot of teams, well, I think every team wants to come and do that. So yeah, just it makes sense. Personally, I would have liked to have seen Bethel in, but I get why. Pope's at 3. Peter, any other thoughts on that? Would you say?
Not much more. I would say that I feel that it will come. I think
Yeah,
that this series will end with Bethel at 3, and we'll start again. I'm doing it already. I'm thinking about Brisbane. I think this series will end with Bethell at three, and we'll start Brisbane with him at three. I just think that as you actually said, it was going through my mind as well. There's just something more about him. Yeah, he's very young, very inexperienced. He hasn't got many first class games behind him. He hasn't got a professional 100, I think, at all. Um, so there's a lot of maybes and we could see this, but I think the potential that clearly cleverer people in the cricket journaling world than me have seen, and people in the ECB have seen that means that pretty much I think it will happen. I think they're just waiting for the time to slot him in and put him there, and then he'll have that role himself. I think that the bowling lineup is pretty straightforward. I think that Jofra will come in if he can. And I think that Sam Cook is probably the only person that's a little bit unlucky not um, to get a game. I think if they were serious about taking him to Australia, I'd give him as many games in this series as possible to become part of an England team first of all, and second of all, being able to play against elite players. He's very very good in the county championship. Don't get me wrong, but this batting team, yes, it's missing Rohit, yes, it's missing Virat, but it's still a massively experienced elite batting lineup. And if he's going to be fit and firing for Australia, he needs to be playing the five tests that we've got here, or as many of these five tests against that sort of elite team. Um,
Yeah. Just
but
just on the bowlers, Peter, do you think, it feels like every time we talk about an England sort of lineup ahead of a test series, we're kind of having to sort of second guess who the bowlers will be. Would you say there's anyone in that bowling attack for that first test who is nailed on, like for their
so
players?
for their place, full stop. No, I don't. I wouldn't say there is,
Yeah,
and I think that's a bit of a byproduct from Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad retiring recently, because they would have been nailed on for a place. And I think it's also a byproduct of Jofra and Mark Wood being made of cheese. Um, I
yeah,
think I think I think if Jofra and Mark Wood were fit continually, I think they would play pretty much as many games as possible. Jofra clearly can't play every game possible, and Mark Wood, as I said, is not made of anything that seems to be particularly strong. Um, so yeah, I think that's why. I think that the closest to being nailed on is probably Bryden Cuss, I'd say, if I had
mhm.
to say, give
Yeah. I,
something.
I think I said that. I just think as an all round bowler, I don't really think England have got anyone like him at the minute. Um, so I think for that reason, he's probably kind of first on the team sheet 9 times out of 10 when the bowling lineup's getting put together. But other than that, I mean, I know, sure, Bashir is the spinner. McCullum and Stokes have kind of turned to more, but even then, I just think if he was to be suddenly taken out the team, I wouldn't be surprised. I think the only one way I'm thinking, yeah, Cars, I can't really see him stepping away or like being moved out. I think he's the only sort of player, but yeah, everyone else, it's kind of fair game really. But that must be good for bowlers who are kind of on the fringes and thinking, oh, maybe bowlers who were looking at, for years with Anderson and Broad going like, well, there's the opening bowling pair. They've been together for 15 years or whatever. Now it's like their chance has come, and people are going, hang on, there's actually a chance now for me to, if I put the work in and show off my ability, I'll get picked and I'll be in that little sort of rotation of fast ball is what we seem to have at the minute.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's just I sort of overlooked Bashir a little bit there. I think Bashir will play all five tests. I think that he's
Yeah,
not going to go anywhere. I think he'll start in Brisbane as well. I don't think there's. I think that they sort of backed him for now. Maybe we'll see after this year, because Jack Leach seemed to be the one that they backed, and all of a sudden he was sort of moved aside without really any doing anything particularly wrong. But yeah, I think Bashir is pretty much nailed on to play as many tests as possible here. He's young, and he does turn the ball when he's when he's got it singing. Um, so we'll see on that front.